listened to your podcast here, there, and you said you make constant trips to the remote locations. When you are starting out, like 1, 2, 3, 4 properties across the continent, how often did you make a trip when you are, cash flow is still kind of low, and what do you recommend? You said you're going to visit like a couple times a year, but when you are just starting out, it's not that possible to, I just wondered.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I really believe that it's based off the temperament and the appetite of the investor, okay? Now, in fairness, when I was going up there once a month or once every 3 to 4 weeks, predominantly it was because I was shooting more content to put out, right? So I needed to physically be up there in order to have the camera crew follow me around and whatnot, because I've got just as much transparency in my business based on having the right project managers in the market as I would if I was there. When I get there, I see what I saw through the videos, the pictures, and all the descriptions that I get, right? But I would say, we've got some students that they go to their projects once a month. We've got some that's literally done deals and never seen them, right? I haven't personally been to Detroit since October. Unfortunately, it's still cold up there and I need to go like in the next 3 weeks or so. But yeah, it really is based off of what's your appetite and your temperament, what makes you feel most comfortable. I would also say this, be ultra conservative at first. So go more than probably you like to, right? And then after that, let the reins go more and more as the time progresses.
Do you think visiting the actual site and then having more meetings in person with the property management companies or your team would make a big difference?
Yeah, 100%. So when I'm there, I'm actually spending more time with my team than I am the projects. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Great question.
Hi there. Thanks for being here.
Yes,
when you started out, what was it? What is the most challenging part for you in terms of making the decision to go to different markets, and what were you looking for?
This ROI metric, it's a thing for me. You know what I mean? And so it's my biggest motivator, right? And I'm gonna go wherever the best ROI is. The biggest challenge, though, I will say this for remote investing, and I think even if you're doing it in your backyard, is team building. Becoming proficient enough not to do everyone else's job, but to learn what everyone else is supposed to be doing so that we can go back to the start of this conversation, you can hold them accountable properly, right? So it's really about, having good systems and processes. A good cadence to your business is also important, right? So what that simply means is the project managers, the contractors, the property managers, that they all understand the frequency in which you guys are gonna meet and what KPIs, what key performance indicators should you be looking at during that interval of meeting. Does that make sense? Yes. So it's really about, you can only go as far as your team. I don't care how good the deal is, you can underwrite that thing back and forth, it'd be a ton of money, and if you don't have people to execute that vision, you won't win in this business, whether you're doing it in your backyard or from afar.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, Brian. He stole part of my question, but so what are the 2 or 3 biggest metrics that you consider when you are assessing a market to enter? And are you considering any other markets outside of Detroit?
Yeah, so I'm a creature of habit. I've been with the same woman for 20-something years. I go to the same tailor. We go to the same restaurants. So if I find something that's working, I don't get bored with it. I just get paid with it. I keep doing the same thing, right? So it's not that I haven't looked at other markets. Obviously, I've got many students all over the country investing in different places. I've looked at parts of Ohio, it being a neighboring state to Michigan. I like the Cleveland market, Cincinnati, even Columbus, right? But unless or until my market isn't giving me the looks anymore, then I would pivot and go into another market. Because, and the main reason for that is because building your team and getting competent people that you can trust is the most difficult part of this business. And because I have that infrastructure already set up, then it's like, I don't want to interrupt that. You know what I mean? I want us to try to build and have as much longevity in that.
The other part of the question was maybe 2 or 3 of the biggest metrics that you consider going into a market?
Yeah, so it really depends. So if you go into bestplaces.net, right, one of the things that it will show you is the makeup of a market, the percentage of home ownership versus renters in that specific micro market in that zip code. Well, that's helpful because if you go in there as a flipper, and if you take a market like Memphis, and I haven't looked at Memphis for 3 years, so if there's anybody in here from Tennessee, forgive me, don't throw tomatoes up here. But at one point, it was 30% home ownership, right? Wow. Probably not a good market to flip in. Right? Because the makeup of that market is 70% renters. So it's a great cash flow market, as is Jacksonville, Florida, but not so much for going in and doing active income strategies like flipping. Okay? So those are the type of metrics that I'm looking at when I'm drilling into a new market to understand what should my exit strategy be if going into that market, because you really got to plan all this stuff out and think with the end in mind and then reverse engineer your way into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Brian as well.
All right, my man.
Spelled the right way.
With an I, right?
Yes.
You get all kind of points with me for that. Yeah.
So my question is more on the personal side. My wife is not like Jen in the sense that she can get in, she wants to do this. She's more maybe like your wife. She's like, hey, I support you. In fact, she likes to spend money, so she likes, the lifestyle that real estate can afford. So how do you involve your wife? What's her partnership with all the things that you're doing, and what are the conversations that you guys have?
So I caught my wife with a frother the other day in the kitchen. Do you know what that is?
Yes, unfortunately.
I'm like, I guess we came a long way from like stirring stuff in a cup. I'm like, what is that? Anyway, so that's just a little bit of picturing of what's going on in my world. Now I'm like, anyway. So, I involve her as much as she wants to be involved. Now, I will tell you this. That came back to bite me early on because she wanted to be involved a little bit more than I realized. And again, it just started becoming, it added a layer of friction to our marriage that I didn't particularly care for. And it was uncalled for because the stuff that she was doing, I could easily outsource and delegate and pay somebody and have a peace of mind with me and my wife, right? I can separate the two worlds. She ain't here right now, right? I can separate the two worlds, but it's challenging for her to know when it's work time and when it's husband time. And so anyway, I eliminated that wrinkle from our marriage, and it's been phenomenal. And thank God, the marriage counselor, he agreed with me when I said it. So that really helped. But I think the important thing is, and this is where I made a big mistake early on as I started to scale and make more money and all the rest of it, I did a poor job at showing her where she fit in the vision. See, all because she's not a part of the activity to produce the vision doesn't mean that she still doesn't need to know that she belongs somewhere in the vision, whether that be as my wife, as whatever, right, my partner in life. And if they can almost feel as if they're left out of the vision, then it's hard for them to support your vision, right? Because they're almost scared that if you actually get what you want, where does that leave them? And it just took a lot of maturation to figure that out. And so I think the biggest thing you can do is, as you are super excited about what you're building, that you also have inclusive conversation to show the benefit of what you're doing and how it benefits you as a whole. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, for us, it's transactions, right? But what is those transactions and the sacrifices and everything that happens, how does it benefit them, and where do they fit in the whole picture? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
that is good.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I have a question around receiving mentorship. I was curious about why you decided to get a mentor. How was the process around finding a mentor and some of the pitfalls that one might be able to avoid?
So I was a unique specimen because I've been out there for 8 years on my own, bumping my head, asking people who aren't qualified, who were called friends, about business decisions that they weren't qualified to even be giving me those answers, right? And so we got to be careful who we empower to speak into our life, because the only people we should be taking advice from are those that have success in the arena that we want to go into. Otherwise, it's kind of foolish, right, when you really think about it, to ask your friend who just called off work because they were hungover what you should do about this property that you're having issues with the tenant, just logically speaking, right? So stop that, right? And then I figured out, well, I need to get around some people, but based on the environment I come from, I didn't know where they were. And finally, thank God, one of those infomercials found me late one night, and I went to the free thing that led to the 3-day thing that led to the $40,000 thing, but it was the best thing that I ever did, though, honestly. And since then, identifying that that's kind of the cheat code in life, is to get around others that you can leverage, both their mistakes and their success. I've never stopped paying for mentorship for the last 8 years since. You know, even 14 years being in single family and had done a ton, when I got into commercial multifamily, I went and found a mentor. I went and paid somebody and used their systems in the process. That's how I was able to scale and buy 100 units in 18 months, right? So for me, it is the catalyst. I'm not making a move on anything. I need wise counsel in my life in every aspect of it. There's just, I don't want do-overs. I'm tired of that.
Yeah. Any particular pitfalls to avoid when trying to identify the right
So my
person?
prerequisite for mentorship is, do they align with me morally, ethically, and then do they have the success that I want? Because I've been a part of mentorship where, you know, they had the financial success, but there was a lot of stuff that was just off in terms of who they were, in terms of character as a person. That's important to me. If I'm gonna spend my time around you, because what you tune into, you turn into. So I'm very sensitive to that. It's not just about money, it's about being around people holistically that align with where I'm trying to go as a whole. Bless you, man. Yeah.
Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Hello, thank you for being here. I follow your content. I've been remote investing because of some of your content. So thank
Okay,
you.
very good. What's your name, sir?
Dan.
Dan?
Dan,
Nice
yeah.
to meet you, Dan.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I have a question. So remotely holding your property manager accountable. I am in the Midwest. I live in California. I invest in the Midwest, not too far from Detroit.
Okay.
So at what point do I get on the plane, go there, start looking for other property managers? And I know that's something you've talked about, like you got to be aggressive and hold them accountable. And I have no problem holding someone accountable, but the holding somebody accountable remotely is kind of a challenge. So can you kind of tell me what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So that, if there's two key people that you have to fly and meet in person, property manager being one of them, and whoever the contractor is, the second one.
Okay.
Right, very important, because unlike society today, getting knee to knee is very important.
Yeah.
It's something magical happens in that space that you can't get over a Zoom.
When we first met, when I first went out there, I met him, and it was like, you know, everything was perfect. But I just think maybe the proximity, me not being there, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's ready to fire the property manager, but I'm getting pretty close.
Sure. So the first thing is, right, in meeting them, asking them the right interview questions. What's their retention? What do they do for good tenants? What's their maintenance costs? That's a key one. If they fight back on that a little bit, then something's off to me.
Okay.
Because if you're charging me, I'm gonna pay it, but you should be able to let me know if it's a 10% upcharge on the toilet, or it's gonna cost me $400 every time we gotta replace a wax ring.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I need to know that, because I need to make an informed decision of whether this relationship works. And whatever the number is, let me chew on that and figure out if it works for me.
Okay.
Right? So when you start asking these questions up front, they understand that you know more than they take you to know. And so they treat you different than everybody else in their portfolio. I can't tell you that my property management company gives everybody the same level of commitment that they give me. But you have to teach people how to treat you.
I like it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Hi. Hi.
Hey,
So first of all, thank you for
I
being
like the
here.
shirt, by the way.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. Mike, I didn't get one, but all right.
I had to buy it. So question. For new real estate investors, how would you suggest to source the deals?
How much do I suggest?
How would you suggest to source the deals?
So, and it'd probably be some difference of opinion in here, right? We've acquired properties off market and on market. But what I can tell you is that we probably still buy, and I'm just, not just me, but our students, 80 to 90% of our deals off the MLS. See, a lot of people shy away from the MLS. The MLS is not the problem. It's the fact that you agreed to pay them what they wanted. Good deals are made, right? I remember there was a property that I bought, a 16-unit building. It was on the MLS for $750,000, right? We gave them $660. There was another one that was listed for $650 that we paid them $465 for. So it's about making the deal that makes sense. I'm never concerned about what they want. I'm always concerned about what's my margin, what's my exit strategy, and I make the offer that makes sense. Mike talks about this all the time. Make the insulting offer, let the chips fall where they may. And I know it's unnerving, and you almost feel like they'll never go for it, but you'd be surprised. They come back around a lot of the time.
But what if they have multiple offers?
I still submit my offer, and I don't increase my offer just because there's multiple offers. See, one of the best things that you can do is build out what's called a credibility package, okay? So a lot of the time, because I bought so many deals in my market, I have my agent send over a credibility package that lists out with our offer an email that shows my ability to perform. Because sellers don't want to do what? Waste time with people that can't perform. So I've literally gotten deals for significantly cheaper just because of this credibility email states that I'm a serious buyer and the seller didn't want to waste time with going in contract and possibly getting their time drug out for a couple of months, and then I end up being the recipient of the property.
Thank you. Another question, really quick.
Sure.
How do you manage contractors remotely?
Oh my God. We're gonna have to talk upstairs in the quiet room for that one. But you know, managing contractors is it's interesting. I'm gonna tell you this. If you remember this rule, you'll be pretty successful. Well, two. One, always pay them in arrears. Small deposit to start, and then pay them based off of work completed. And if they ever push back, ask them this question. So we got a $60,000 renovation. If I gave you $30,000 today, can you complete half the project in a week? Just by sheer order of operations, they cannot. So then logically speaking, why would you hold my money instead of me hold my money? I'll give you more money after you finish demo and start the roof, right? So pay them in arrears. The second one, Jesus, that just took me all over the place. I lost $500,000 dealing with contractors at one point, right? So I'm very sensitive to this. We overemphasize this stuff inside of our program, right? So pay them in arrears and never believe the videos and the photos, right? So when we interview contractors, we always get a couple addresses of where they're currently working, okay? Hopefully they got some, because if they're good, they should be working somewhere. So we get a couple addresses from them, and then we'll pop up unannounced. We don't tell them when we're coming because that's the dog and pony show. They're ready for you, right? So you send your boots on the ground out there at a time where they don't know you're coming so that you can really see what's the cleanliness of the work site. Are guys here? Did people show up at 9 o'clock? Or are they still at Home Depot playing around and they get to your job site at noon and then they go to lunch for 2 hours and come put an hour in and they leave? As you can tell, I got some trauma behind dealing with contractors, right? So, you know, just figuring those things out. But if you remember that, so as long as you control the money, you control the outcome, you'll be in good shape. You can never let them get ahead of the money. You cannot afford to lose 20, 30, 40% of your bid up front and somebody come in and do demo and then just stop answering the phone. You can't recover from that, right? This is the last thing and probably the most important. Be slow to hire and quick to fire. The reason I lost $500,000 in this business early on is because when you're starting out, you think that you need them. And to some degree you do, but there's a difference between I need you and I can't do it without you. Let me say that again. There's a difference between I need you and I can't do it without you, right? And so when you take that posture and position, then you never let a contractor hold you hostage in your own project, right? So slow to hire, quick to fire. You'd be better off letting that thing sit vacant than thinking that they're going to be somebody different than who they've already shown you to be. Because Maya Angelou told us best, when people show you who they are, believe them. They're not changing. I don't care how many broken promises, they're contractors, you know what I mean? So if you get it, you got it, right? Like, so just, you know, keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Except for the ones in this room. The ones here are good, you know what I mean? I haven't met them yet, but all the rest of them,
Awesome. Thank you.
all right.
Very much appreciate you coming out, Brian.
Yes, sir.
My name's Chester. So one question I have, and this is something like when you were mentioning this in terms of taking action, very much resonated with me, you know, spreadsheet guy, recovering perfectionist.
I like that. Give me some on that. I like that.
So my question is, so I'm struggling with being comfortable with, you know, getting uncomfortable, taking that action where I don't already know what's going to be on the other side. So I guess my question is, and maybe if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing, you know, kind of your, I guess, journey or your path, did you rely on, like, when you were talking about processes and systems, was that something that you could kind of hang your hat on, or was it that and or a combination of, like you said, holding yourself accountable?
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's less about the processes and the systems in this regard, right? The thing that moves and motivates me is God blessed me to have this desire inside of me, right? And everywhere, in every capacity, whether it was in corporate America, moving up, or all the other things that I've done in life, it's nothing fulfilling about it, right? And so that's the thing that keeps pushing me, because otherwise I'm almost nauseous. Like if I'm procrastinating at this point in my life, I'm almost nauseous, because that means that I fear an outcome that I don't desire, and I'm not taking action on that because of that reason. But it's all made up in my mind. So all I got to do is shift the narrative and start to look forward to the outcome I do desire and take the action, right? And the pain of inaction far outweighs the pain of action for me at this point. So I'm just going to keep jumping, right? And then I lean heavily on my faith. I have a phenomenal relationship with God, right? And I'm not pushing my belief system on anybody here, but I'm just telling you what worked for me. I spend a lot of time in that prayer closet, but I also understand that faith without works is dead. So after I pray, then I got to go do something. Right? You're not going to bless you sitting on the couch watching Netflix. It don't work like that. Right. So I got to go do some stuff, because it also tells us that he'll order our steps. Right? So I got to be in motion and for him to order me. Just say he pushed me off the stage, said he'll order my steps. So I got to be moving. So I'm constantly in motion. I'm constantly seeking. I'm constantly surrounding myself with great people, bro. That's so important, Chester. Surround yourself with, like, what Mike said earlier, you got to make some connections in this room. You have no idea. You can form a relationship that forever would change your life in here. I got chills literally just talking about it. And that's been the biggest thing that I've learned from investing in myself, is the people that I don't know yet, that aspire to have the same stuff as me in life and probably got the same challenge with finding the right people. And they're all inside of this magic room. It's the craziest thing, man. Yeah. And they want to help because they identify with where you're at. Right? So what I would tell you, actionable steps, right? Every day, do you make a list of stuff that you want to accomplish?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you did say you were a spreadsheet guy, so you got some lists for sure. So if we could take like just a couple action items every day, small ones, right? And commit to them. And you will start to develop a muscle, and for some reason, you just start to feel really good about when you say things, you do them. And then that'll help build the encouragement and the courage to keep taking the bigger steps as they present themselves.
Yeah, and that reminded me, like, as you were saying that, like, going back to that, and I know one of the other speakers who's going to also speak, I think, tomorrow, confidence comes from competence.
100%. There's no getting around it. And stop, all that social media stuff is nonsense. It's fake confidence. That's not competence. Right? You just focus on being competent, the confidence will follow, for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chester.
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Thank you. My name is Owe.
Hey, Owe.
Thanks for your presentation. It's very inspiring, what you have accomplished. Your story really resonated with me. Just like you, I'm also an out-of-state investor. Okay. So a lot of things that you talked about in terms of the contractors, that really, that hit home. The thing that I've been interested to know, and which also was very inspiring, is you mentioned earlier that you had your daughter close her first deal. Mm-hmm. And I also have kids. I have a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So I want to start introducing them to real estate.
Sure.
Build that generational wealth.
Yeah.
How did you get your daughter how did you introduce your daughter to real estate investing?
I did mention we went to family therapy, didn't I? You got to be careful what you ask for sometimes, man. No, it was funny because she had been seeing me do this her whole life, right? But without going too deep into it, but one of the things I learned in family therapy was she had trauma from me being away, right? And it was more so because of when I worked in corporate America, but then she just associated everything involving me and work as being a negative thing. And I didn't know this until literally last year when we went to family therapy. And so when she was 18, it was December of 2020. She was at home because of COVID. She was getting ready to go back to college. And she was like, Dad, I want to learn how to wholesale. I said, okay, cool. I said, I got a course. It's going to be on sale in 2 weeks for Christmas. You family, I'm giving you the insight. I'm just being honest with you, all right? I said, I got a course that's gonna be on sale for $500. If you serious about the course, I'm gonna give you pro bono mentorship, right? Because I understand that when you pay attention. And secondly, why would I just inadvertently answer all these random questions to her, peeking her head in my office, when I put together systems and flows and education and all the rest of it, right? And I knew if we started reading from the same playbook, I can advance her faster. So within 60 days of her buying the course, taking action, she had got her first 16-unit condo wholesale deal in Connecticut, and then 4 months after that, she bought her first rental. So when people pay, they pay attention. The more they pay attention, right? And I'm not saying charge your kids. I'm digressing. I'm just telling you what I did for mine because I know who I'm dealing with, okay? But I think the biggest thing is, at one point I was frustrated as a dad because all she was into was dance, and then she's been a paid actress since she was 12 as well. So it was just all mommy stuff, right? And then the more I pushed real estate, the more that she kind of retreated from it. So I just left it alone. So the best thing that I would say is lead by example, let them arrive at the curiosity when the time is appropriate for them. Yeah. Then after they go through a $40,000 renovation on their own, they'll hate your guts. But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Thank you very
yes,
much,
sir.
Brian.
Yeah, all right.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hey.
Fabian.
Fabian, nice to meet you.
Nice
Brian.
to meet you, Brian.
All right.
Thank you. I heard a few of your interviews with Mike. Very interesting stuff. But I didn't know that you're an out-of-state investor, particularly in the markets that I'm invested in and I'm interested in. So basically, we went from a few rentals to suddenly 5 more rentals.
Come on.
In Ohio.
Yeah, congrats.
In Cleveland. And I heard you mention Detroit as well. So all Midwest markets that we are interested in. So I'd like to know, how do you go about scrutinizing or screening your market? And then what's the criteria that you use and the path or the processes, as you mentioned, that you use from switching from probably single family homes, duplex, triplex, to more of the commercial buildings from, I would say, I don't know, 6 to 20 probably is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And then it becomes larger and larger, right? So those are the two interesting questions that I would like to.
Sure. So again, I use bestplaces.net to look at a lot of data within the market, right? Telling me what's going on with the makeup of the market. After that, though, when I start looking at deal flow, I'm looking at what's my expected return on investment. So like on a lot of our apartment buildings, because of the rent moratorium and it was taking 6 to 8 months to get people out and eviction, and I got to pay for you to litter it, and I got to pay to clean up after you. So I was like, oh, you know what? We're going to start buying vacant units. So my market allowed me to start buying vacant apartment buildings. We renovate them and put our people in from day one, right? So that became my buy box and strategy specifically for the larger commercial multifamily. And I look for an equity multiple of 3 over 5 to 10 years, and typically that we could extract most, if not all, of the initial capital out from the raise on the refi, right? When we finish to go into permanent debt. The 2 to 4 units, I want to make at least 20% of my money year one. I'm just being honest. And my market allows me to do that. And so I've got some that I make even more than that. Based on if I use leverage and only put a small percentage down, I'm killing it with the return on investment. So it's just about, for me, I think every investor needs to set minimum thresholds, because that'll keep you from doing bad deals, right? When you leave it too open and loosey-goosey, then you'll start having buyer fatigue because maybe you're struggling to find a good deal in your market and you'll default into buying something you never should. For me, if it ain't 20%, I don't want it. Does that make sense? Does that help?
It does.
Okay.
And particularly, what are the difference from your point of view from, a market like Cleveland to a market like Detroit?
Very similar. That's why I like Cleveland. I just haven't gone there yet because Detroit hasn't forced me to, but I really like the Cleveland. They're very similar in terms of cap rates and areas. Very similar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Good job, man.
Can
I ask you a question?
Sure.
Where do you live currently?
Say that
Where do you live currently?
Where I live?
Uh-huh.
I live in San Jose, California.
San Jose, California.
Yes, sir.
Could you have scaled up to 75 properties in San Jose, California, had you not went to Cleveland?
No, of course not.
Correct.
No.
So there you have it, folks. What better way to end the conversation?